And welcome back live to our Mountain Lake PBS studios. I'm Tom Helluck, along with Vika Natarian with the Armenian General Benevolent Union in Montreal. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here, Tom.
You have your own personal story of the genocide.
Well, actually, Tom, every single Armenian living on the planet has a personal story. But mine is particularly poignant. It's related also to this documentary. You will see mention of something called as the Ottoman Court-Martials. What happened is in 1919, the Allied forces occupied Istanbul, the capital of the Ottoman Empire at the time. And a court-martial was held. All the perpetrators of the genocide had already escaped. They had run away into different countries, some of them to Germany or to other countries. So they were tried in absentia. And in fact, they were condemned to death in absentia for what was known as crimes against humanity or war crimes at the time. There were a couple of junior officials who were arrested, one of them being the governor of the region of Yozgat Bogazlian, Cemal Bey, and his chief of police, who were particularly brutal butchers of the Armenian population. And the prosecuting attorney of that court-martial was my great uncle. His name was Levon Remzi Bey Atarian. And my middle name I carry with pride. My middle name Levon is from his name. He was a famous attorney at the time who was targeted to be arrested with all the rest of the community leaders, but he managed to escape through the efforts of my grandfather, who was his brother, who sort of got him out from his house at the last minute and disguised him so that he would not be recognized and be arrested. So my great uncle actually participated in that court case where there is actually the only historical case where the Ottoman government or Ottoman officials recognize the genocide that was committed. So we have actually historical records of that happening. So this is a very important document. So that is my personal connection. But like I said, every single Armenian has a story like that. Ուրեմն սիրելի հայրենագիտներ, չմոռնաք հերացանները հիմա չեն հնչեր, հնչեցուցեք, թուք ձեր մեջ ուժ ունիք հնչեցնելու, մեր զանգերը ողանչեցնելու, մեր ցայնը բարձր բահելու, ուրեմն հնչեցուցեք նաև հերացանները 1-800 836-5700. Become members of Mountain Lake PBS, this courageous little PBS station, whom I remember the first time we broadcast this. There was a huge controversy about this film.
That would have been in 2007, I believe.
Yes, there was a huge controversy. There was a great diplomatic pressure from the government of Turkey to have a so-called neutral panel discussion to discuss whether a genocide took place or not, to be shown after this film. I would say about 1/3 of the PBS stations, for reasons of integrity, refused to broadcast that because they argued that we would not do that to argue for or against a situation like the Holocaust, for instance. Why would we do that for the Armenian genocide? And this station was one of them. This station courageously took the stance not to broadcast that so-called panel discussion, neutral panel discussion with Turkish historians who challenged the veracity of the genocide. So we can only be thankful. And to be thankful, the best way to be thankful is call the station, 1-800-836-5700. Become a member so that programs like this one, more and more of them are made. Because remember, the more we tell our stories, the more people will listen to our stories. The more people will listen to our stories, the more they will understand the truth. And that's how you advance the cause, and that's how you make a difference. Every single phone call you make today is a huge step. It's, to quote Neil Armstrong, it's one giant step for human justice.
And that is our mission, is to air these stories and to bring them to our audience, and that's what we do here at Mountain Lake PBS. The phones are coming to life. It's wonderful to hear. They're ringing. Our volunteers are talking away, and this is a good time now to remind you, if you become a member, you can get a copy of Andrew Goldberg's The Armenian Genocide. Let's go over to Jen Kowalczyk now, and she's going to tell us a little more about some of the gifts. Jen?
Thank you. And your call could not be more important than it is right now. So call the number on your screen. It's 1-800-836-5700, or you can make a donation online at mountainlake.org. The gifts that we have for you tonight are the Armenian Genocide DVD, which is the program that you're enjoying right now. That's available for a generous donation of $96 or a sustaining donation of $8 per month. We also have a collection of 3 DVDs by Andrew Goldberg, the director of this film, which includes the Armenian Genocide, the Armenians, A Story of Survival, and Images of the Armenian Spirit. They're all beautiful films, and that collection is available for $204 or for a sustaining gift of $17 per month. So again, go ahead and make that call. It's 1-800-836-5700, or give a gift online at mountainlake.org. The important thing is that you give a gift, because really it's not possible without the support of this local community.
It's so important to hear from you. Right now during this fund drive, we air important shows like this all the time. In fact, this week we got some great specials coming up. We have a series on Vietnam starting tomorrow night.
That's right.
Important documentaries, award-winning documentaries you can trust. PBS is one of the most trusted news organizations in the country.
That's right.
It's so important that you stand behind us and help us meet our goals here, help us make the budget for this great PBS station. Call right now or go online to mountainlake.org.
And PBS is really known for tackling real issues, whether it's the Vietnam War, the Armenian Genocide, or even locally at home. You know, we've really addressed veterans issues with our documentary On Home Ground, or on Mountain Lake Journal every week, where you can see local issues that we are willing to really take on in a way that I don't think you'll find on many other places on television.
Yep, it's so important we hear from you. Come on, you can do it. Armenian community is stepped forward to help us out tonight, and we want to thank them for coming down from Montreal. We broadcast to Montreal and to 4 million people. Let's hear from you right now. Call or go online to mountainlake.org.
We love to see those phone volunteers busy. So 1-800-836-5700 or mountainlake.org, and make your donation right now. Let's hear from Tom and Beacon.
All right, thank you, Jen. One volunteer is open right now, so call in. She'll be happy to take your call. You were mentioning some of the programming coming up this next week. Rory Kennedy's The Last Days in Vietnam, an Oscar-winning documentary, is going to be airing here on Mountain Lake PBS, and that's really the type of programming that we do, we provide. We have filmmakers and documentary makers who are...
Yes, you know, Tom, I was reminiscing, you know, I've been doing this for many years now. And I do recall history was actually made, again, on this station, in this studio itself. I remember on one of the documentaries, we received a phone call from a Hungarian lady in Montreal. And she said, my great aunt actually was responsible for an orphanage during the Armenian Genocide, and she saved thousands of orphans. So what happened is that we made the connection between that woman and one of the filmmakers. And the filmmaker is actually today working on a documentary about not only about her great aunt, but also about other similar stories. I remember this same documentary itself, we broke the record of pledges. That's how supporting the Armenian community was. We broke the record of pledges against the 3 tenors, which was the highest ever pledge.
That's no easy feat.
That was no easy feat with this same program. So the Armenian community, I think, is extremely grateful. And now you can show your gratefulness by participating and calling. It is very important. 4 million people are watching this, are potential viewers. This program has been aired and re-aired. Encourage courageous stations that tell important stories. Important stories not only for Armenians, important stories for all of humanity. And it's through these quality documentaries. The filmmakers are encouraged, Tom, by saying, okay, there's demand for this, so we're going to go back and make more films. And I tell you that I think it was Andrew himself that told me in one of our side conversations that the story of the Armenian Genocide is still not told. Even though we have these great documentaries, but we will go back once we have the capability and once there's more openness in Turkish society, and make even better films. We have so many stories to tell. We have the story of the person who is known as the Schindler of the Armenian Genocide, Mehmet Celal Bey, who was the governor of the Konya province. And he himself personally rescued thousands of Armenians from the death marches because he refused to obey the orders of the murderers, Talat Pasha, Enver Pasha, Cemal Pasha. And he disobeyed them, and for that he lost his title. But then he wrote his memoirs. In his memoirs, we read the stories how he had saved the lives of the people. But we need to bring those stories back.
He saved the lives of thousands and thousands of Armenians.
He saved the lives of thousands of Armenians by personally removing them from the trains and instructing his people not to put the people into the death marches. Whether they eventually survived, we don't know. But we at least know that there were people who did the right thing, that our humanness, again, was victorious over our hatred inside of us. So these stories are very important stories that need to be captured. They are these spotlights of great light that needs to be shined in those great moments of darkness. So that is what we are doing. Please call the station 1-800-836-5700. Support this station that tells your story, that tells our story.
And as you mentioned, filmmakers, documentary makers know they can come to PBS. Their stories can be told. A number of shows, Independent Lens, Point of View, documentaries like this that are airing on PBS stations across the country so that they can share their stories.
Yes, and I think, somebody told me, this is anecdotal evidence, I don't have 100% proof, that actually Mountain Lake PBS is the station that has aired the most amount in terms of broadcast itself, the most number of broadcasts on Armenian topics over the past couple of decades. So this is something really to be proud of, and this is something that you, the Armenian viewer, tuk sireli հայրենագիտներ, tuk եք որ ծեր քաչալերանքով, ծեր հերացայներով գարդոնեք, որբեսի այս հերադեսիլի գայանները կարողանան պատկերասփռել հայ ժողովրդի արդար տադին նպաստող վավերագրական բոլոր ֆիլմերը։ Ուրեմն գխնդրեմ անհաբաղ հերացայնեցեք 1-800-836-5700 եւ անդամակրվեցեք։ Ձեր լավագույն ներդրումը ըրած կդարած կլալ հայտադինի նպաստ։ Միլիոններով մարդեր գտիդեն այս ծրագիրը։ Ուրեմն չմոռնաք անդամակրվելու։
You mentioned before, Andrew Goldberg won 2 Emmys for this documentary, the Armenian.
I think only one. The other one was for another one, yes.
For one of his other documentaries.
Yes.
He, in 2007, was here in the studio,
yes,
here at Mountain Lake PBS, and he talked with our recently retired President and CEO Alice Recor at the time about the significance of very good friend of both of ours and the station certainly. And he talked at the time about the significance of making this documentary, and here's what he had to say.
But I want to point to something that happened recently. A lot of people may not know about this. I guess some people will, but just several weeks ago, an Armenian who lives in Turkey who was outspoken about the genocide was shot down and murdered. And we have in this documentary several Turks who spoke openly about the genocide. Turks. Now, he was an Armenian living in Turkey. These are Turks living in Turkey. So to the Turkish people, to speak openly about the genocide in Turkey is a real act of betrayal in the eyes of the Turkish government and many of the Turkish people. These are people who put their lives on the line, particularly Halil Berktay, who lives in Turkey, who they're constantly threatening to do this and that to. And Ragip Zarakolu, another person in the film who, if you haven't seen him yet, you'll see him in a few minutes, they blew up his studio. And these people are all putting their lives on the line to tell the story of this, to appear in our show. You know, we asked these people, Fikret Adanir, Fatma Muge Gocek, Taner Akçam, all in this film, all Turkish, ethnically Turkish people who acknowledge what happened to the Armenians. And we asked them to come in this show, and the first thing we often get is, discussions, not from all of them, some are very bold, but discussions about where's this going to show, what's this going to mean for me. And I think that this is a real act of stepping up to the plate. A lot of people said to me, you're taking this show on about the genocide, are you worried about what may happen to you? I will tell you, we double and triple locked our doors. We all carried mace. We did screening events. We had security, like I had policemen everywhere and what have you, because we were not interested in entertaining any kind of violent acts happening to any of us. But this is a hot political issue. It's an issue that drives people through the roof. And right now, they're talking about recognition of the Armenian genocide in the U.S. Congress. They talk about it every year, and some years it makes more momentum than others. Here it is on television. The way bills like this get passed, and I'm as a journalist, I'm not having one opinion or another about the statement of what governments do to acknowledge events of history, but I know that if you're an Armenian and this is an important issue to you and you want to see governments recognize it and the public know about it, people who walk down the street to know the truth about the genocide, that the way you do that is to get this on TV. Everything in America happens on TV. Yes, this is what happens. Remember Elian Gonzalez? He got hit. Remember that kid a young boy who was trying to get into the country? He got a day in court. Now, a lot of people trying to get immigrants don't get their day in court. Why did he get it? Because it was on TV. We send the message, we educate the masses through TV. How do we get this show on TV from viewer support? And that's why it is so important that you pick up the phone and call this station. If Armenian genocide recognition is important to you, and it's something that you talk about, we're putting it now on television in front of thousands, millions of people around the country. We simply must have your pledge. You have to pick up the phone. We've got some phones now that are opened, which, again, I know I'm being a little obnoxious on the air here, but that's shocking to me. I mean, if this is an important issue to you, you've got to support this station. We need the support. We need the support or these shows won't get rerun. So I'm making a personal plea to please pick up the phone and support this station at no matter what level. But please, think about people like Hrant Dink, who put their lives on the line to tell this story, like the people in our show, like our cameramen, people who went all around the world undercover, putting their own physical safety in jeopardy to tell this show. And we need your support to send this message to the public that this is a real story about the Armenian genocide, that it happened, and that people can know about it so denial can finally be extinguished.
And that was Andrew Goldberg with Alice Recor back in 2007, talking at that time about the importance of supporting programs like that on Mountain Lake PBS, and it's still true today.
It's still true because he mentioned an important person, Hrant Dink, who was murdered because he dared speak the truth in Turkey itself about the Armenian genocide, the famous Armenian journalist, Turkish citizen. But what is also interesting is that subsequent to his murder, 100,000 people in Turkey itself walked in his funeral. This was something unseen. Prior, the only time it was so many people had walked in anybody's funeral in Turkey was for Kemal Atatürk himself, the founder of the state of Turkey. So now we have an Armenian journalist murdered for speaking the truth, and then you have 100,000 people walking in his funeral procession, most of them non-Armenians, all bearing banners saying, "We are all Armenians, we are all Hrant Dinks." This is unprecedented. I think this shows the power of image. This shows the power of the truth. This shows the power of the word. And I think that's also the power of a station like this one. When you tell a story, when you tell that story through images, when you tell that story which is the truth, so there's no embellishments. It's a documentary, deeply researched, as Andrew mentioned, even people putting their own lives in danger to make that documentary. The only thing you can do is learn and support it. There's no other things to do. So support it. You have already learned. Please call 1-800-836-5700 and become a member of this station. Wonderful station, Mountain Lake PBS.
Andrew's documentary aired on nearly 350 PBS stations across the country. How much of an impact did that have on getting this story told across the United States and beyond, and how critical has that been?
I think it was a watershed moment. I remember, like I said, the first time when we aired it here with Andrew's presence, we broke the record. But since then, I think a lot of other filmmakers were encouraged to go back and research and tell take the grand theme which Andrew introduced, the Armenian genocide, and take its sub-themes. For example, Baret Maronian, if you remember, we did the one on the orphans of the genocide, and how their individual stories told through the story of one single orphanage which was discovered in the mountains in Lebanon. We had other documentaries that were aired here related to the genocide, but also related to Armenian history, some of them actually made by Andrew himself. We had another one which holds the all-time record about the Armenian community in Jerusalem. Now, the Armenian community in Jerusalem is not about the genocide, but its story itself, the genocide, is such a massive event that it has had its effect on the community there as well. So the point I'm trying to make is that it is not necessarily what story you tell. It is how you tell it. What is the quality of the filmmakers that have created these documentaries, and where does it air actually? If it aired on a commercial station, it would have been cut up by a lot of commercials. It might have been edited. It might not have the prestige and the in-depth necessary of analysis necessary. Plus, it's not a commercial program. Like I said, this is not a pleasant story. But the people who are gathering around, who watch PBS anyways, they are the intellectuals. They are the people who appreciate these stories. They are actually, a lot of them are the opinion makers in society. They are the educated ones. So what we need to do is we need to persuade them about what is the truth, how it has happened, and what they can do to do something positive about it from that great negativity that was the original source of this great calamity on my nation.
And to find out how you can get your copies of Andrew Goldberg's documentaries, let's go back over to Jen and Eric.
Thank you. I was just struck by something Viken said, that really he felt that it was a watershed moment when this program was first aired on PBS stations across the country. But I think that that's true of a lot of things that started on PBS. You now have dozens of channels that are really devoted to things like cooking or home living. But that stuff really began on PBS. It was really the beginning of so much great programming. And now you live in a 500 channel universe, right. But really, can any of them stand up to the quality of programming that you get on PBS?
PBS brings you a wide range of programs that inspire, programs that educate youngsters, and programs like this that speak to some really important historic issues. And it's so important we hear from you right now. Support the station. Call 1-800-836-5700 or go online to mountainlake.org.
That's right.
It's so great hearing French, Armenian, and English being spoken over here, isn't it?
That's right. I love it. And we have a lot of great volunteers over there, and I can count one or two that are not on the phone, so now's your time to make a call of support. When you do, we have some great thank you gifts to offer. You can receive the Armenian Genocide DVD, which is $96, or a sustaining pledge of $8 per month. You can also receive a collection of 3 of Andrew Goldberg's films, $204, or a pledge of $17 per month. That's a sustaining pledge. A sustaining pledge simply means that you would agree to make a contribution on an ongoing basis to Mountain Lake PBS for every month. That really gives us a dependable base of support that we can rely on, that we know is coming to the station every month, and it lets you know that you've done your part to make Mountain Lake PBS and great programming like this documentary possible. So go ahead and make that call, 1-800-836-5700.
Or go online to mountainlake.org right now and make your contribution. Whether you're from the Armenian community, whether you're a French-speaking person from Montreal, whether you're English-speaking in Montreal or down here in the States, it's so important we hear from you right now. Membership is our most important revenue line, and we're counting you right now to step up and become a member in Mountain Lake PBS. 1-800-836-5700 or online at mountainlake.org.
Thank you, and we'll send it back to Tom and Viken.
All right, thanks a lot, Jen and Eric. Now, let's continue with the Armenian Genocide.